and welcome to the Turtle Tracks podcast. I'm your host, Brian VanHooker, and I have with me today Cameron Kim Dawson and Bobby Herbeck, the producer and screenwriter of the original 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Thank you guys both for being with me today. It's amazing.
Hey, Brian, so much fun. Thanks.
Especially for the 30th anniversary of the film.
Yeah, indeed. It's been a ball. We had hoped that the whole world would come out and see the movie again, and we'd go to Comic-Cons and all that sort of stuff. But obviously that's all on hold while Bobby and I are sheltering in place. So,
yeah, I see that there was an effort by you two to have a bunch of events planned for this year, but I'm guessing most of those have turned to digital to some degree?
Yes. Virtual. We're in a virtual world like everybody right now. But I know that we were going to do WonderCon, got canceled, as you know. Then we're doing San Diego, got canceled, but they are going to do a virtual San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, cool.
So I'm hoping that we're on the dais there. My last word was they got 900 people to pick from, but they don't want to miss the opportunity of the 30th anniversary of Ninja Turtles. So I think we might be in the mix there. We'll know in a week or so. They're going to put a big announcement out. It's just a shame. Built up for over a year to get ready for this year, and this virus couldn't have been last year or next year. It has to be the frickin' 30th anniversary of Ninja Turtles. Are you kidding me? Anyway, I'll be all right. It's just so, but you know what? Everybody, and Kim knows, and doing what you're doing, Brian, everybody's gotten so creative online, especially performers and people like us. Are there every day doing something, and it's just like a stream of water, and they've dammed it up, and the water is going around another way. And I think that the time is good for us right now as far as the social media goes, because what's everybody else watching?
Oh yeah,
MSNBC and Fox News. I don't think so. Yeah, they're watching this.
Yeah, well, hopefully, yeah.
And we'll still love the movie at the 31st anniversary, so it'll be fine.
Well, we are going to there's going to be a showing. We can't say who or when, other than there's going to be a 2-day national screening, 1,200 theaters in the fall. That we can say. Oh,
awesome. Very cool. I look forward to that. That's great.
Yeah.
So I want to get started. I know you guys have told the story, but I hope you haven't tired of telling it, of how the movie started. And I think the story starts with you, Kim, and I know we owe a debt of gratitude to Gallagher. Is that right?
Well,
yes.
I'll clarify that. My partner, God rest his soul, was a guy named Gary Proper. Gary was a surfer from Cocoa Beach originally, and I met him in the early 80s when I was working at Showtime, and I was the executive in charge of production and director of original programming for Showtime, covering comedy and among other things, and I was covering the Gallagher shows. And Gary was managing the Gallagher at the time, and we struck up a friendship because we were when I grew up, I surfed on one of Gary's boards. Gary rode for Hobie surfboards, so I had a Gary Proper model when I was a kid. So when we got met one another, and this is in like 1981, we became instant friends. Gary was a big collector of comic books, and wherever they'd go. On tour, Gary would always go to a comic book store. So it was in 87, I believe, early 87, that he was touring with Gallagher in Detroit at the Fox Theater there. And he walked down the street. I think the place is the Midnight Vault or someplace like that. It's a comic book store there, right near the Fox Theater. And he found the original comic book. The black and white, the first issue.
Right.
Maybe they were in the second printing. So he sent it to me overnight. He called me that day, all excited that this was going to be our first motion picture, and that's basically what happened. He sent me that comic. The next day, we called Mirage Studios, and they put me on to Mark Friedman over at Surge Licensing, who had just signed a deal with them maybe 2 or 3 weeks before that. To represent the property, to represent Mirage and the Turtles to the world of toys and other, merchandise and licensing.
Oh, so this all started before the cartoon even came on the air.
Oh, yeah. The cartoon didn't come on until the end of 87, Christmas of 87, before the toy convention in February of 88. they produced that comic book as in conjunction with Playmate Toys. Actually, Playmate was a big part of it, and so Kevin and Peter had signed up with Mark Friedman, and Mark made the deal with Playmate, and then Playmate made the deal with Murakami and Wolf to make those first 5 cartoons.
Mark Friedman being the man in charge of licensing.
Surge licensing.
Surge licensing, yeah. Just to clarify.
So you guys knew it before before any Turtle Mania really hit. Other than the comic book, you guys were like, there's something to this thing.
Well, I'll let Bobby speak for himself on that. Sure. Because I know he instantly got it. I felt I did too, but Bobby got it like, whoa.
Yeah, and I happened to be, Kim called me, and he lived in Newport. I lived, as I said earlier, in Long Beach. And we met in the middle at an In-N-Out Burger in Westminster. And I said there should be a little plaque there on the grassy knoll. We sat out on a grassy knoll because it was just a step-up window In-N-Out. It wasn't inside eating or outside eating. So we sat there, and he had a VHS, and he had some books, comic book, and he had this stuff and showed it to me. And during that time, was writing a movie for Golden Harvest. And Kim's genius was, he tells Gary and Gallagher, I got a buddy I knew Gary. He said, I got a buddy that's writing a movie for Golden Harvest who makes, the Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan movies. And that's the company that should do this film. They've got the best martial arts guys in the world, and you put them in the costumes and loop the voice, dub the voices, and then you got your Ninja Turtles. So I'm just paraphrasing. So he brought it to me, and just your instincts. It's just one of those, his instincts, Gary's, Gallagher, everybody's, even Peter and Kevin's instincts, I'm sure. You just knew there was something magic about it. It was just so odd. And many times over the years I'm interviewed, because a lot of people will go, oh, so you wrote you created the Ninja Turtles. I go, no, I wrote the first movie. And then I got to a point where I just go, yeah, okay, next question, because I just don't want to go through it again. But we knew that they were going to had a great shot. And the story's all about timing. Our timing couldn't have been more perfect. The timing of everything that had tripwires along the way, but the timing of the young people were ready for something new. There weren't iPads. The kids were watching TV back then, which you were probably a young boy then. You watch TV, and this was their show. I say the kids discovered it. Parents didn't know what the hell they were watching until the toys started coming out. Well, that goes to my boss at Golden Harvest, Tom Gray, because Kim gave it to me, and I went to Tom and tried to pitch it to him.
There was a lot in between there, Bobby, wouldn't you say? We probably pitched it to 30 different.
No, yeah. But I went to Tom Gray first on my pitch, and he goes, Herbs, don't bother me with this Pigeon Ninja crap. Just finish the movie I'm paying you to write. Department store. And so, but I kept circling back. In the meantime, I'm wallpapering Hollywood and going around pitching the story, and I'm being laughed and sniggered at out of meetings, and some of them calling my agent saying, who's the guy smoking pot that came in here with the turtle thing? And my agent says, I don't know about the pot, but the turtle thing is real. And it's a case of we didn't give up and no one believed us, but only a few people got it. And then, go ahead.
Well, there was a natural aversion to live action movies based on comic books because both Howard the Duck and Garbage Pail Kids had gone in the tank. Right? Big, expensive films that hadn't performed at the box office. So there was, and Hollywood is designed, in my opinion, it's designed to say no for the most part. They like to build things from within. The studios and the big independent production, they like to develop stuff internally, and they have found it themselves. And so we sort of had those natural barriers that were working against us. But to go back to touch a little bit on the Gallagher thing, because I think there's some misunderstanding about Gallagher's role in the Turtles. I know over the course of time he took a little credit for it. The fact is that Gary and he did. They probably toured and did about 150 performances a year. Now, by the time Gary found the comic, I was doing comedy specials with Gallagher for Showtime, and we would do two specials a year out of those 150 shows that he performed, many of which were in Las Vegas. But as he went around the country, Gary looked at comic books, and by the time he found the comics, he had already licensed, I think, Scout War Shaman, which I think was I think it was a kitchen sink publication, and he had Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Xenozoic Tales, which was from Dark Horse Comics. So he had acquired the rights to about half a dozen different comics. This was something he kept doing, and he kept saying, "Let's turn these in," and they were difficult to get studios to buy into it. But when the Turtles came, it became even more difficult because it seemed so outrageous. The title in itself was outrageous. People, like Bobby said, people go Tinjin Ninjin what? So
no, they say stuff like they go, "They're turtles," yeah. And they talk? Yeah, they talk. And they do martial arts? Yeah. What's their name? Raphael, then they start going, sniggering. Raphael, Donatello, and they go, "Yeah, okay, listen, excuse me just a minute. Listen, we got another meeting coming up, but thanks for coming in with this, and good luck with that." And that was the pervading, and I would constantly go back to Tom Gray at Golden Harvest, and he'd go, "Herbs, I'm going to throw your ass out of this office if you bring up that Ninja Pinjin Turtle shit again. I'm done with it. Leave me alone." And then we went and had a drink one night, and I remembered he had 2 kids at home. One was 12, one was 10. Now it's on the TV as a cartoon. And I said, "Just go home and ask your kids about it. I'll never bring it up again." When I got back home that night, I have a message from him on my record-a-call, which was now in the Smithsonian, a record-a-call answer machine. And it's him, "Herbs, Tom, give me a call." They really were not good machines. But he said, "Give me a call, get your buddy and get him here and meet me tomorrow. I want to talk about this." And that got us to the next step, because his kids said, "Dad, get with it. It's like what's happening." And that opened the door, the first door.
Right.
Well, I gotta say, I know for me, so I'm a fan of Ninja Turtles since I honestly can't remember a time before. I was born in '85, so I grew up with it all along, with the cartoon and that first movie especially. And I've become a fan of every iteration, some of the bad ones, some of the good ones. Like, I like everything, or at least I find something to like about everything. And your movie in particular, to me, is the best Turtles thing ever, including the comics, anything. I think it's the right blend of humor and seriousness. It is, to me, the Turtles have never been better than that 1990 film, and I say that without exception. It is excellent.
That is so nice. Just a minute, somebody wants to say thank you.
Yeah. Oh.
This is going to be great.
Dude, thank you, dude. Really, that's really good. Is it on upside down?
It's upside down, and for those who are, this is only a podcast, so I'll just let the audience know Bobby lost his mind.
Okay, good. It's only a podcast. Yeah, I got Leonardo on upside down. That doesn't sound right. It was a mask. Okay. Hey, thank you for that, though, because
no, it's true. I like I said, I love everything, but that movie is the perfect blend of like humor and they're real people, like the real characters in that movie. They're 3-dimensional. Like, for the most part, me would have them sort of simplistic takes on them with 1 dimensions, and there's a lot of depths in yours. Like Michelangelo, like there's a lot of like underlying things about his personality in that movie. Like, there's a part where Donatello comes to talk to Michelangelo and about what happens if Splinter's not here anymore. And Michelangelo just averts talking about it. He's obviously by and he lets it go. Like, there's so much subtle character work in that movie that I just love about it.
Well, I think you're right. Thank you for that. That's really a tribute to both, first of all, Bobby and Todd, who wrote some of that with Bobby. Bobby basically hammered out the story and most of the script, and then Todd came along and polished with him. But really, Bobby's characterizations, based on what Peter and Kevin had done. But then when you add Steve Barron into that, because Steve is the quintessential storyteller, and he's not he's a complex character unto himself. As a director, he started as, he has a director background in art direction, so he really understands the visual medium, but he also understands music and the power that it has, because he directed music videos for Michael Jackson, among other things. But that, and then one of his close friends is Brian Henson. And between that combination of people, Brian has a sensibility that is, obviously sprung from his dad, but with that combination of people, bringing the actors and the puppeteers and all the technicians involved, it had to be an amazing team of people working together to craft those elements, to actually make the turtle costumes work and kind of emote those the feelings that all the characters had. So, but it all starts with the story and the words, to be honest.
Brian, and Kim was in TV a long time too. I used to be the king of the warm-up guys in Hollywood by accident for many years. That's where they my job was to keep the audience's ass in the seat while we did the show, right? Mm-hmm. And keep them laughing and their energy up, but not be funnier than the show that's going to follow. But I learned to write at the Norman Lear Company. They encouraged me. I started punching up scripts, and then they drugged me along. And it's just amazing. Like I was saying earlier, timing. I was in the right place at the right time when that happened. Kim and I met each other in some great circumstances in a faraway place in another land. Right. And there's always these connections to these things. And I just think, like I said earlier, it was the timing. Even to the point, and then I'll shut up, to the point of there was a big tug of war on when to open that movie. And usually, as you know, it's Christmas and summer. And they ended up smartly. I had said to Tom Gray, why not spring break? No one opens a movie at spring. And that's what he said to me. No one opens a movie at spring break. And they did, right, Kim? And Kim may have more to that, but that's when they opened at March 30. It was us and Pretty Woman at the box office, and we were duking it out.
It's different audiences too, which is good.
Well, there were that manifested in a ad campaign that after the first couple of weeks, because we were 1 and 2 going in for, I think, for 4 weeks in a row, 5 weeks in a row. But by that time, there was sort of an ad campaign that was going back and forth where it was both ad campaigns were making fun of the other movie, or having fun with the other movie. I shouldn't say making fun, because they were both performing, and against all odds, because Pretty Woman was ripped by the critics as well. It was not particularly well received by Hollywood critics. So.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know. I'll have to go back and look at those. I did. That's a piece of history I did not know. That's cool.
So, Brian, what was your favorite turtle?
Always Donatello in every iteration. And I have a Donatello question for you.
Sure.
So what I like about your Donnie is different than every other Donatello. Your Donatello is still the smart one, but he's smart through humor. He's a smart ass, and he says a lot of lines that are funny, but definitely not Michelangelo funny. He's different. And I'm curious what influenced that, because, other iterations of Donnie are less grounded. He's building a spaceship out of sewer parts and things like that, of car parts and things like that. Not on planet Earth. But with your Donatello, he seems real and he's hilarious. And I'm curious what went into your Donnie, because it's a unique take, and it's my favorite take of Donatello, and I've always loved Donatello.
Yeah. Well, I just think when I start the writing process, and I had material to go on. I didn't have to start from page 1 and have nothing. And I spent quite a bit of time back in Northampton with Peter and Kevin. I had to get the story together for the movie that they would sign off on. Okay, so they certainly had input, but for me, everything starts with character for me, and I just like you said, 3-dimensional characters. Not just here's a guy and he's wearing purple and da. But and I think all 4 distinct personalities came out in the Turtles, for sure. And you're mentioning that now. Raphael is me to a T. Hot-headed, pain in the ass, crazy person, just fly off the handle. But Donatello to me was just kind of kind of just the smart guy, you know, that saw smoking it and just drops these little subtle little comments that are really bright, smart, and witty. And it shows that there's more to him than just being the brains of the group, you know. And there was a bit of leadership about it, because I'd say Donatello was the quietest of the four. You know, when you stacked him up, he was the thinker. You know. So one of my favorite scenes is the bathroom scene in the bathtub. You know, when Raffi, you know, is there and Donatello wasn't it Donnie?
Oh, it's Leo is talking to him.
Leo, I'm sorry.
Donnie says it's a Kodak moment.
It's Donnie in the door, which I love. That's just Donnie when he says it's a Kodak moment. I mean, just these throwaways that he did, and that's just the way I imagined him. You know,
my favorite joke is when he pulls out the bag of marshmallows and says, "Don't worry, I came prepared."
Yeah,
my favorite.
But this is what I was going to love. I was going to ask you because you know we're doing this reading. I think you know this on the 23rd, right? On World Turtle Day, we're doing a cast and crew, mainly cast reading of fans' favorite scenes. And
cool.
What we find out, go to YouTube, go to TMNT 1990, TMNT movie 1990, and Judith has done a little teaser on there. That's where we're getting these hits. And then we'll do some subsequent teasers to fill it in more. But we're going to get together and have a virtual Zoom reading on the internet. A pizza party is what we're having.
Oh, very cool.
And we'll be doing what we've accumulated as fans' favorite scenes. But see, you drop one in and went, okay, there's one I haven't heard.
I just love that joke. I mean, I also love "You're claustrophobic" and a bunch of other funny lines, but that marshmallow joke still makes me
that's great. No, that's great.
Well, I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie is with Casey Jones, when Donnie and Casey are going at it with one another. You know, in
fixing the truck. Yeah, it's great.
Fixing the truck. Because that dialogue is so crisp, and it's sort of, you know, I think the thing about the Turtles, and particularly that scene, is the way teenagers are. They want to you want to go at one another, and it's no holds barred, right? And that's sort of you know, depicts that character of teenagers as well, or better than any other scene in the movie, I think.
That's a great one. It really is.
Brian, I was also very much, because I'm a hopeless romantic and I'm a easy crier with stuff, and I always wanted to get the point across with Splinter's connection, and I wanted, without beating it over the head, but some messages to young kids that came through Splinter and through the things we saw. And also, as we've said in our other interviews, even though people don't know the work that goes in it, nor should they have to think about it, but and Kim, unfortunately, has heard this so many times, but I first of all, I listened to Oriental music on a headphone while I wrote it. I needed that. And then I looked at Star Wars probably 50 times and looked at the battles and realized that Lucas, one of the many geniuses of Lucas, is there was a reason for every battle. It wasn't just, okay, we're 7 minutes, we need to have a fight. And so every battle in that movie, in the Turtle movie, there was a theme, so for lack of a better word. There was a reason for that, not just time to kick ass and fight. So
it's always earned.
And there was always a lesson. You know, Splinter was there, and when he wasn't there for a lesson, they were really confused. That's why they run out to the country, you know, to get their air out and get their head together. Plus, they had one of their boys that they thought was dying on them. So I wanted to have an emotional connection too, not all laughs and action.
Well, I mean, like like I said, I think that's why the movie holds up, is because all the characters have this really well-rounded. Like, Raphael is the angriest, but he's also clearly the most sensitive. Like, there's a lot to the character that's like, to all these characters that show there's a lot of facets to them. You know, I'm curious, and this is just my perception, but I'm curious how true it holds up. So my view of that movie is that it's, you know, the structure and the seriousness of the Mirage comics plus the jokes of what was in the cartoon at the time. I'm curious, did the cartoon influence your writing at all, or was it, I don't know, I'm just curious.
You know what? I got to be honest, I didn't watch the cartoons.
Okay.
I just got to be with Peter and Kevin, looked at the graphic comic books, and lengthy talks with them, took copious notes. It took a long time to get a story that they both agreed on. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, and I got to a point where I could tell when I walked in a few days later, I'd given them the new treatment, and I could tell by their body language when I walked in at breakfast in the morning, if Peter was looking down the floor or away, I knew Peter didn't like it. But Peter and Kevin, two different personalities, night and day.
Sure.
And they didn't all, they just, a lot of times they didn't agree. And I said, how did you two ever get a comic book done? But that's part of the creative process. Just like anybody. It's just like a TV show, a movie, or a music group, you know, that they all hate each other, but yet they go on stage and they kill it. So, and I'm not saying Peter and Kevin don't like each other. They had a very, I don't know about now, but they had a very special relationship and a great admiration for each other, you know. And one was stronger than the other at what they did. They admit that in a documentary I saw. You know, one didn't like to color. The other one did. You know, one liked to do the drawings. I think that was Peter. Kim might know. And then the other one liked the colors. So it was just interesting, the mix and how they did this.
I think it's that adage of how steel sharpens steel. It's like, you know, the combativeness maybe generated something that is...
But just giving them credit, just the genius of what they came up with. And to the story I recall, and I asked them, because everybody does, how did this come about? And they said, we were just channel surfing one night and said, boy, there's nothing but crap on TV. Let's just knock it around, kick it around, and see what the most craziest ideas we can come up with. Now, where the turtle part came, I can't tell you. But then the Renaissance name and the martial arts, and it was just this great, unusual combination. That was a genius of them. And there was other geniuses involved in it. Steve Barron, to me, was a genius with the way he opened the movie, with the manhole cover and just giving you kids a peek. Because I know you were at the edge of your seat. And you went, God, there they are. And it was just him peeking. Yeah. And he goes, oh, man. And he goes, damn, and shuts the cover. And you go, oh. And I get goosebumps because then he hits the music. And then you hear him kicking about. And you see their silhouette in the sewer. You still don't see him yet. And you're still getting closer to the edge of your seat. I just think it's brilliant what he did.
I interviewed him as one of the first of these podcasts I did, and just talked a lot about how he's just such a great visual storyteller. And I mean, like, you had to hide a lot in shadows, so the technology holds up really well. Like it works so well.
Listen, and then I want Kim, because Kim can fill in a lot there. But you know, I looked at the movie a week or so ago, and I looked at it last April as well. But I looked at it a week or so ago. Last week, and I called the next morning, talking to Kim, says, and to our group. And I said, you know what? God, it still holds up. And I'm not bragging. That movie still looks good it was way ahead of its time. What the Henson people did was phenomenal. And those really actors in those suits, which Kim will tell you. But the story still holds up. And the action scenes. Yeah, I just think it does still. That's why it's lasted 30 years.
Right.
Kim can tell you what they went through to do this.
But you know, we're as Bobby mentioned, we're going to do this pizza party later this month. But we're also in the process of creating a series about all the stories behind the scenes that will allow the actors and Steve Barron and other to actually tell the story of how they came to the movie. And obviously, Bobby and I are going to be a big part of it. But it was sort of like. If you think about Murphy's Law and how anything that goes wrong will go wrong, or anything could go wrong would go wrong, it did throughout the process. It was so difficult because there were so many moving parts, and it was just one of those circumstances where you thought at any point in time it could get undercut. I mean, and I think this is it may not be big public knowledge, but 3 weeks before, or not 3 weeks, 6 weeks before the movie was scheduled to start, we got a call from 20th Century Fox, who was scheduled to distribute the picture, and because Tom Gray had worked at 20th Century Fox as the head of foreign sales at one point, and Leonard Goldberg, who was the head of the studio at that time, had been fired, and Barry Diller took over and said, no more Turtles. He wiped the slate clean. He took all of the stuff that was on the slate that Leonard Goldberg had greenlit, and they were all canceled. Every one of those films. And the proviso that Raymond Chow had made to Tom Gray was that you absolutely 100% need to have U.S. distribution. If you don't, there's no movie. And at that point, they'd already spent all the money on the costumes and on building the sets and so forth, and commitments to actors and so forth. So almost half the budget was spent before the movie started. And it was, or
Don't want to give it all away now.
No, I know, but that's that's one example of how it took about 3 weeks before the deal with New Line got put back in place to recover the film. So it was it was like that. There were so many aspects of the movie that could have undermined it and made it not be what it was, but somehow or another there was just this thread that kept weaving through that said, no, let's keep going.
A lot of starts and stops.
Yeah, lightning in a bottle. Sure.
So we're going to do a book, and we're doing this series about
Bobby, I've heard
what we're talking about, and even today, I mean, even it's still this whole coronavirus thing. Told Kim, we got to still have another chapter to go,
right?
Because this, as we said earlier, this has changed the dynamics of what we have on the board to do this year.
Right.
We didn't have this pizza party reading thing. This was Judith's idea. She was wondering how to put it together, so we joined forces, and it's a great idea. People are real. The response on Instagram and stuff is phenomenal. Everyone's psyched, so we got Warner Brothers is behind us, so it's just good feng shui so far. By the way, move that pillow. You're going to screw the feng shui up, Kim. The pillow over your shoulder when you're done.
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Bobby, I've heard you say before, in another interview that the Marx Brothers were an influence on the way the Turtles interacted with each other. I'm curious, who's who?
Oh man,
I'm gonna guess Leo Zeppo, but maybe I'm wrong.
Who?
I was gonna guess Leo is Zeppo, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think Raffi's more. Let's see. Yeah, you think who you want. I have to think about that. It's been so long.
Sure.
I mean, to me, Groucho was the wisecracker, and who was the biggest wisecracker in the movie?
I would guess Donnie. Well, maybe, but I would think Mikey would be more heartfelt.
Mikey was more like. Well, you're probably right. Donnie was had better zingers. Mikey was more frivolous, I suppose.
He was Harpo for me because he didn't have to say a lot, and he got a lot out of saying a little. Donatello did. Right. Because Harpo was, Zeppo was the con man. But I would say Leo more for me for Zeppo.
Okay.
Groucho for sure to me was Raffi.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really a fan, and it's my buddy Pat Proft, who you may have heard of. Pat's with the Zuckers and wrote Naked Guns and Hot Shots and Airplane and stuff. And Pat and I used to go do our Comedy Store night gigs, and then we'd go. And we go to the silent movie theater on Fairfax and see old movies with the guy still playing the organ. And we go at W.C. Field movies in Pasadena. And we just got into that world. Laurel and Hardy, still my favorite of the whole bunch. And then the Marx Brothers. But yes, I'm glad you got it. It does have a Marx Brothers feel to it.
Well, the movie is also littered with little Stooges references, which work so well.
Yeah. I had one piece I wanted to put in there that was in the first draft, and Tom took it out. But we all have had doves in our backyard, and one day I'm hearing the doves. We had doves would always come to our kitchen outside the kitchen window and have babies every year. When they leave, they go woo, 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 woo. And one day I looked at my wife. I said, I think that's where the Stooges got that woo, 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 woo. I think they were having lunch at MGM, and a dove flew by and goes, woo, 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 because it is the exact same sound. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I wanted to have that in the picture. I wanted the guys sitting around kicking tires on things. I wanted more of an impression scene than just the one we got. And I wanted to put that in there with, well, let me tell you something, wise guy. Guess where the Stooges, guess where we got woo, 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 from some doves outside our window. And he took it out.
I think that was my introduction to the Stooges, I'm pretty sure. And I love them now, but I think that's where it started.
Yeah, good.
Bobby, you did an interview with Dick DiBartolo last year, and I wanted to follow up on something that you'd said in that At one point you were talking, and you said to him that you're working with Nickelodeon about going back to the original Turtles, and for your comments, I don't know if you know this, have kind of turned into like this rumor online about maybe there's a new series linked into the show, anything like that. So I'm trying to find out, what were you talking about when you said we're talking Nickelodeon about going back?
That's really Kim. Kim's the point man on that of going to Nickelodeon. And let Kim pick it up because Kim will tell you what the.
Well, you can say this. This is an idea that I've had for a long time. I believe the Turtles, particularly insofar as their banter is concerned and their relationship, would be fantastic art history teachers, and that they could go to the museums of Italy and rip on one another's artwork, their statues and their paintings and their frescoes and all that stuff, and teach art history, but with the attitude of the Turtles. I think it would be fantastic. And you'd have to do that in a throwback way, not the new guys, because the new guys don't have the same sensibility. The new characters don't, and the new cartoons don't. Yep. It's so I don't know if it ever get traction with Nickelodeon, but that was, we've been having that discussion for a while.
Yeah, we've had a lot in this period, the last couple of weeks, and we've had a lot of fans like you that are crying out, do a reboot. We go back to the old Turtles.
Yeah.
I'll find stuff that's on, because I've not been in the social media till this happened. I didn't know what was out there. Here's this whole line of people. Where's Bobby Herbeck? Dude, is he dead? Where is this guy? Why aren't these guys writing these other movies? These movies suck. We want to go back to the old Turtles. And I asked Kevin Eastman, I had lunch with him in November, what he thought of the new look Turtles. And he had a conversation with Michael Bay, and they kind of had words. And Kevin's like the rest of us. He didn't like it at all. Maybe you've interviewed him. But I say, you don't change with Superman and Batman and Spider-Man, and these maybe subtle over the years, but very subtle. He's made them into complete other creatures, and I think it's a shame.
I agree with that. That it just didn't feel like them. Let me hit you with a couple other questions, because I know I don't want to keep you guys too long. And for either of you, do you guys have any idea of what Shredder and Tatsu's backstory is? Because that's one thing I'm curious about. Where did that relationship come about?
Well, Tatsu is based on my sister was married to a very nice man from Japan named Tatsu, who lived in Houston. He was a professor, and he was a real interesting guy. No, but not the Tatsu we see. It was just the name, and there was he just was a yes boss kind of guy from what was the Yes Boss? What series? The Hawaii the remake Hawaii 5-0. Yes Boss. That's all that guy would say in Hawaii 5-0. They tell him, hey Dano, go over there, and break that guy's leg. Yes Boss. And he was kind of a yes boss guy to me. Sure. And just a person that I threw in. He was Shredder's henchman. Okay. Gotcha. Shredder's the Lord. Shredder's like, come on. He's Darth Vader. That opening shot of him from above. Yeah. It's like, that's a steal. That's Darth Vader. But he was very Darth Vaderish, and he had to have, this was his right hand, this was his henchman. I thought he was more threatening than Shredder.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed more level-headed too, and I'm curious, why did he go along with what Shredder was up to? But
Shredder signed the checks.
I see.
By the way, we are going to have Mr. Sato is going to join us for the reading, which I personally am thrilled about. Because he was really reticent to do it, but we got him. Judith Hogue had a lot to do with it. We got him on board, and I'm thrilled because
that's very cool.
He's an icon. You can't have this without him, and I'm hoping we can get Tatsu on.
That would be amazing. Bobby, I know that you weren't involved in the sequels. I'm curious. The world that you set up was different than what those movies became. It became much sillier and different. When you were writing the first one, do you remember if you had any ideas for where you might want this to go? Sure. For the first one?
We had conversation with the boss about it, but I'm not going to give out a lot because that's going to be in our book and in our. Don't get me wrong, and I want to hold that card a little close, but it suffices to say, because Kim was privy to seeing me have a meltdown, I was not thrilled that I was not involved in the sequel, but I learned this was my first movie that got made, Now, I've been in other movies as an actor, but this is my first write this and see it on a screen. And which is just like your first time as an actor, and you go see yourself on a big screen, you just kind of slide down in your chair like this and go, oh, Jesus. When you see in this movie, when I went to the screening room to see it, the rough cut of it, it's a high I can't explain. I still do stand up. There's no bigger high than a great show as a stand up, but that is pretty damn equal to it.
Yeah.
And, I think I lost your question. I got it. Went off.
Whatever you want to do is fine.
We both had visions of what they could be, and I think that it was the choices for the second and third movie were influenced by a lot of different things that we'll talk about later. But I don't know that.
I was out before I was in, Brian, in the business, the parlance of the business. Because when you do a sequel, they got to pay you more. That's just even the Writer Guild says they take what's called your quote, your last price, and they bump it up. It's like your batting average. You're paid by your batting average, if that would be the case, really. And Raymond Chow ran his company, had very, very short arms, and if he had his way, Kim and Gary had an ironclad they had their deal was done. They were smart.
Well, what
I didn't have sequel rights.
Yeah, we optioned the rights in a different way, and so it was.
And I did not have sequel rights, which I was saying I came out of TV, so I knew nothing about sequel rights. I looked at Tom Gray and says, "But I am writing the next one, right?" And he goes, "Sorry, Herbs," and I was crushed because they went, "Are you kidding me? You didn't even want to do this frickin' movie. I browbeat you into doing this movie, and now you're kicking me to the curb." So.
Well, let me ask you, and I don't need to know the intricacies of it, but I'm curious, like I said, your Turtles were a little more grounded. Would you have gotten, alien brains and
no,
all that other crazy shit? Like, do you guys know who Ace Duck is? Like, there's a lot of weird shit in the Turtles, and I'm curious how weird it would have gotten.
Yeah, no, I would have grounded them more. I just thought they should. I thought maybe one of them dated. Because, they had a crush on, if you saw it was subtle. I was telling the guys the other day, it was subtle, but they had a crush on, Raffi Raffi and Michael really had a crush on April. And then one of my favorites to see is when she's lying unconscious on their floor and they go, "Can we keep her?"
I love that.
And I go, "That's up to your imagination. Take it from there."
Yeah.
And there was, if you look at the last scene when they look down from the roof and Casey and April are kissing each other, you can see Raffi kind of just turn a little bit away. That's the way I wanted it, and that's the way Steve did it, that he was a little jealous.
Sure.
So I wanted to follow that, but it means Judith didn't get to do the sequel.
I know.
So it was just, and some producers got bumped, and here's the people that made it work. Why wouldn't you keep that team together? And I'm sorry, but I want him driving a car even in the next movie. I know we did a little truck scene, but I wanted him to go in like driving school or something. I want him to drive a car or a motorcycle, but keep it more real. And,
it's a unique, like they said, that's the only one. The second one had the other mutants and silly stuff, but then the third one, it goes back in time and all that. And I was like, the movie the world you guys established is not the world we end up in. So I was always wondering, like, what might have been,
Yeah.
Appreciate
well, just, this is the history of sequels, though, except for a few, except for Star Wars, and Godfather.
Star Wars, George Lucas had a vision for the property that was extensive. And he had, it was...
Yeah, he had it all written out.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
So, and, with us, we were told so often that this movie was not going to work, that it was going to be a dog, that it was going to be, fail and this and that thinking about a sequel was really distant thinking. It wasn't like we thought, oh, well, we're good. Yeah, we should just write the story that would span those three films. And had we, if we were to do it again, that might be the case, but.
If you heard Dickie D's interview, I covered a lot of this, and Tom Gray, the boss, and I know I said it to Dickie, who I really dig that guy, so cool. But I told Dickie, I said, Tom Gray was so nervous the week before it opened. He just said, "Herbs, I'm so afraid we got Howard the Duck on our hands." I said, "You got a built-in audience. Howard the Duck fell into the earth, didn't have an audience." And
I think the timing too, like, you were so early. You started making your movie so early in the Turtle Mania, but by the time the sequel comes along, the
audience
well established, and you've got also, like, I think, the money makers in Hollywood, they're the ones who are thinking like, oh, a turtle movie makes money. Who gives a shit what the characters are like? Let's just make a turtle movie. So
that's Tom.
Yeah.
Well, Kim will tell you what Tom's philosophy was.
Well, I think that the more fighting, less story. But the bottom line is that you'll hear more from this about, if you interviewed Steve, how dedicated he was to telling the story properly and matching the visuals to that story. And I think that's where the magic for this first picture comes in the characters and their relationships with one another and how believable they are, because, and I think that's a tribute to Steve and Brian in particular, because the way they cast the movie, and particularly with the turtles and the puppeteers, they had this chemistry that you can't do with technology. It's not possible. You had to have actual human beings, and there, it was a whole
no CGI. There was no CGI then.
You can feel them. You can feel those characters.
Well, yeah, and they could feel one another. Believe me, inside those costumes,
I spoke to Michelin Sisti recently, who was in the Michelangelo suit, and he gave me some stories about just being drenched in sweat while in those costumes.
Yeah, it was tough. It was a tough environment.
Let me ask you my last question for each of you. Who's your favorite turtle? Kim?
Michelangelo. I just love him. Well, I love pizza too, but I just felt like Mikey was...
You.
Yeah, well, a little bit, but I don't know. I just always have liked Mikey.
He's Kim. I'm the one that wrote it. I mean, I'm not for Mikey.
And Bobby, yours is Raph?
Huh?
Yours is Raph?
Well, my pat answer, just like if you watch Iggy B, is I love them all, because without all of them, we're not here talking to you. Sure. And without you and the fans, we're not here talking to you. We're truly blessed. I mean this. I might have said earlier, this just doesn't come along very often, and to think 30 years later. So I love them all. I'm just saying, Raffi, and looking at him, looking back and stuff, Raffi is me to a T. I'm the guy to get. I'm a little man, 5, and I'm like Spud Webb. Now there's a name from the past. The little guy who could dunk a ball that was like 5'4". I'm a little guy. And a little Napoleon complex in Raffi, getting pissed and going off, and ready to kick butt, So he was like me in that, give me your best shot. You may kill me, but I'm going to get one really good shot in, and it's going to hurt forever. And that's the philosophy for Raffi. That's it.
Thank you guys both. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you I'm glad that you guys are out there now and embracing the fans and getting out and all the social media and the pizza parties and all that stuff. So I'm there's a lot to look forward to with you guys, so it's such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Brian.
Good on you, Brian.
Cowabunga, dude.
See you later, VanHooker.
Yeah, fun. What?
Bye.
Bye. All right, bye. Bye, Timmy.
Yeah, Bobby.
Okay, bud.
There's a power in the feeling, a power in the sound. It's rising up from the underground.
Nobody's perfect down here on earth, but we can rock this world far where we're.
And I feel it coming from the east to the west. And one by one, we do our personal best. And we're doing fine. I give it a 9. I give it a 9.95.